can the Prime Minister tell the House what is his excuse for the Royal Mail fiasco?
What I would say about the Royal Mail is that taxpayers benefited from selling the business for £2 billion. That, of course, is £2 billion that the party opposite never achieved because they were never able to sell the business.
Speaker, here's what his own side are saying about this issue. The member for Northampton South said yesterday it was a debacle, unethical and immoral. He sold the shares for 330p. What are they trading at now?
They are trading ahead of where they were sold, but the fact is this. When the Right Honourable Gentleman...
Order. Neither the Prime Minister nor the Leader of the Opposition nor any other member in this House must be shouted down. It's not on. The Prime Minister.
When the Right Honourable Gentleman was sitting in the Cabinet, this business lost £500 million. It is now in the private sector, it is making profits, it is paying taxes, it is working hard for our country. And more to the point, there are over 140,000 people who work for the Post Office, delivering letters, delivering parcels, who own shares in the business that they work for. They've got a stake in the future of the Royal Mail. They're collecting dividends as well as pay, and that's something we should all be proud of.
Speaker, he can't answer the question because it's such an embarrassment. He sold at 330p, and this morning the price was 563 pence. It is basic maths, Mr. Speaker, not so much the Wolf of Wall Street, more the dunce of Downing Street. Let me ask him this. If Royal Mail was sold at today's price, how much more would the taxpayer have made?
You know what, Mr. Speaker? I will take a lecture from almost anyone in the country about the sale of Royal Mail, but not from the two muppets who advised the last Chancellor on selling the gold. There they sit. There they sit. Not a word of apology for £9 billion wasted. The Royal Mail privatisation has got £2 billion for the taxpayer, 140,000 employees owning shares, 700,000 members of the public who are now shareholders. This is a great success for our country and something he should be praising.
Mr. Speaker, again, he can't answer the question. The answer is that the taxpayer would have got £1.4 billion less for this valuable asset than it is worth today. And here's the thing, Mr. Speaker. It wasn't...
Order. When the Prime Minister was speaking, I said he shouldn't be shouted down and neither should anybody else. However hard the effort is made to shout someone down, it won't work because we'll just keep going. So the sooner the juveniles can grow up and reach adulthood, so much the better. Ed Miliband.
And here's the thing, Mr. Speaker. A third of the shares was sold to just 16 city investors. And get this, there was a gentleman's agreement that those city investors wouldn't sell the shares. What happened? Within weeks, half of those shares had been sold, and they'd made a killing worth hundreds of millions of pounds. In other words, mates rates to his friends in the city. Maybe he can tell us what happened to that gentleman's agreement about those shares.
Mr. Speaker, we know why he's asking these questions. Because he is paid to by the trade unions. Yes. He sat, Mr. Speaker, he sat in a cabinet that wanted to privatise the Royal Mail. That was their commitment. And what happened was the General Secretary of the Communications Workers Union said this. In terms of the last Labour government, they tried to privatise the Royal Mail. It was the unions that brought the government to its senses. Once again, they were weak in government because they couldn't carry out their policies. They're weak in opposition because they don't support shareholding by post workers in the Royal Mail. They're weak because they've got no economic policy, and they're weak because they've got no plan.
He's flogged it off. He's flogged it off to his friends in the city, and he can't answer the question. Now I'm going to ask him the question again. There was a gentleman's agreement that these long-term investors, so-called, would not sell their shares, but half of them were sold, and hundreds of millions of pounds were made. What happened to that agreement? Answer the question.
What happened is the taxpayer is £2 billion better off. Yes. And anyone who sold shares has missed out on what is a successful business. But the truth is this, Mr. Speaker. He sat in a cabinet that wanted to privatise the Royal Mail. They couldn't do it.
Order. Let's hear the answer. The Prime Minister.
They couldn't do it because the trade unions won't let them. There are now 140,000 shareholders working for the Royal Mail. There are almost 750,000 members of the public with shares. These are signs for celebration in our country, not talking them down because they're anti-market, anti-competitive and anti-business. Nothing has changed in the Labour Party. No wonder they've advertised this week for someone to bring some fresh ideas to the leadership. Yes, I've got the commercial here. I've got the commercial. It says this, Mr. Speaker. You should have the ability to manage the different teams across the Labour Party. I think that must be the hardest job in Britain. No wonder they're looking for a change, because there has got a leader who hasn't got a clue.
Mr. Speaker, he's gone as red as a postbox, and that's because he knows that he's lost £1.4 billion for the taxpayer. This is a sale nobody wanted and nobody voted for. A national asset sold at a knockdown price to make a fortune for the few. It's a symbol of a government who stands up for the wrong people, with the British people paying the price.
Just then, Mr. Speaker, it's a sale nobody wanted. It was in his manifesto. It was a commitment. It was a commitment of the last government. They're shaking. They worked so hard, Mr. Speaker. They failed to do it. But this coalition government privatised the Royal Mail, created thousands of new shareholders, have a great business working for Britain. And we've seen it all from Labour this week. They are advertising for fresh ideas. People around him are fighting like ferrets in the sack. Their top advisor, get this, Mr. Speaker, their top advisor is called Arnie, and he's gone to America. But unlike Arnie, he said, I'm not coming back. They are warring, they're weak, and they haven't got a plan.